When it comes to concrete, we've got you covered. RowPaint.com offers custom concrete coating services for your garage, business, warehouse, and more. And we do it in one day. We are your complete concrete coatings solution.
This is Bronco Nation News Live. The best interviews, the most informed opinions, the latest breaking news, all from the top Boise State insiders. Now, here's four-time NSMA Idaho Sports Writer of the Year, BJ Rains, with another edition of Bronco Nation News Live.
Well, greetings, Boise State fans. Welcome to another week of Bronco Nation News Live here at BroncoNationNews.com. The weekend, unfortunately, over, but it's Monday, and John Mallory's gotten up early as usual to join us here for the Mondays with Mallory segment. Johnny, as you know, the host, KTIK, the ticket prater in the ball game, Idaho Sports Talk, 95.3 FM, 1350 AM. You can listen on the KTIK app, KTIK.com, and very thankful, appreciative of our partnership with KTIK, so we can bring Johnny on Mondays, Prater on Thursdays, and we'll see come football season what we're able to do to keep this thing going, maybe even expand on it a little bit, Johnny. But appreciate you, man. It's I know it's mid-May, and it seems like there's nothing to talk about, but there's always stuff to talk about with Boise State. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I mean, hey, this is late May now, right? Aren't we Memorial Weekend coming up? I can't wait for that. The weather's going to be spectacular this week. On the way in, I was hearing 90 degrees on Thursday, so it's going to be a wonderful day today, and I'm excited to be with you. And let's talk some sports, BJ. Thanks again for having me on.
I'll take that next Friday for the golf tournament, man. I'm just hoping for good weather for next Friday. I'll take mid-70s, 80s, anything. But by the way, Johnny, only one foursome left. I sold two over the weekend, so we're down to the final 4 spots for the tournament. And I moved some things. I moved some things around, Johnny. Right now, as of now, I've got you and JP playing in the same foursome. Is that a bad idea or a good idea?
It's probably a great idea for me, a horrible idea for JP. But hey, man, it's something you'll have to talk to JP about. No, that would be great. I've never seen JP golf up close and personal. I've heard a lot of stories about how he swings and how accurate he is in his short game, and I'd love to see JP golfing up close.
And I've got a listener of yours that calls in often, I believe is on your wall of champions or whatever it's called from the show, that also specifically requested to play with you. So you have been requested, and I'm putting that listener in your group, so you'll have at least one of your listeners playing with you as well. I think it's going to be nice. Going to be a fun time. But again, we're down to the final foursome. So if you're interested in playing in the Bronco Nation News Golf Tournament, we only got 4 spots. 4 individual spots, 1 foursome left. Email me, rains@BroncoNationNews.com. All right, Johnny, we've been talking football. We've been doing our countdown. I do want to talk a little basketball later in the show, but right now we're here to unveil number 15 on our list. We're counting down the 25 most important players to the Boise State football team in 2022. So folks have come in late on the series. We're starting our 3rd week of it here. We're doing a different player a day. We discuss it on the show. A couple of the guys we're interviewing, and then there's an article on BroncoNationNews.com as well that kind of explains why we picked that person. And this isn't best. This isn't who had last year the best stats. This is looking at the 2022 team. Who do the Broncos need? Who are the most important players who need to be healthy and productive for this team to do what they want to do? And we're going along the defensive line today, the edge position. And for me and this group, remember you and Prater and Bob and Jay Tust were all involved in helping put this list together. We're going with number 15, Dimitri Washington, the edge rusher. Dimitri Washington was the stud. They changed it to the edge. And I think this guy's very important. I know Isaiah Banya had a good year last year. I know you got Shane Irwin, who we already talked about. Some people might look at this and say, why is Washington in there over Banya, Banya didn't even make the list? And I get it. Isaiah Banya had some good stats, and we can talk about him as part of this as well. But for me, Johnny, Dimitri Washington had a lot of hype a couple years ago. We're going to hear from Spencer Danielson in a second. But this guy has a ton of tools, a ton of potential. Suffered a torn ACL during the 2020 season, missed that season. That season was basically a wash. Came back last year, wasn't himself for a good chunk of the season. Finally, in the last 4 or 5 games, we saw what he could do. And I think going into this year, a healthy and productive Dimitri Washington providing a pass rush off the edge, making havoc, I think is getting some more production off the edge than just Irwin and Banya, I think is huge. And so we're slotting Dimitri Washington in, expecting a big year from him at number 15.
Leadership too. Dimitri Washington was playing on this team in 2019. That feels like a long time ago, right? That was the last time this team won a Mountain West championship, and he was a part of that thing. And then going into 2020, I remember Spencer Danielson talking about it. And, Boise State historically with the edge position, that's a position that they've taken and they've put in dudes on Sundays with it, right? And it's always kind of been the star of the defense. Who's going to play edge for Boise State? Because that dude's a dog, right? And he's going to get after it. He'll put pressure on the quarterback. He'll help contain the edge in the run, obviously, as well. And you saw Dimitri last year picking off a pass and almost taking it back to the house. He's had that type of ability. And, yeah, that knee injury, I remember it at Air Force, carting him off the field. That was the Jack Sears game. Feels like forever ago, too. And he had, a lot of hype. Sure, and he had earned that hype, I think, from what he had done in practice and previously in 2019. I think he was a pretty big recruit for these guys. And Spencer Danielson was, doing the NFL talk a little bit, and nobody really pushed back against that. Last year he was solid, but he wasn't a star. And if he could get that going from solid, good, and get back to that level, maybe star-ish, then this defense can go to another level, I think. And he's a good kid, too. Everything I've heard, Dimitri Washington's like first guy in, last guy out type of reputation, works real hard. Younger guys look up to him. And he's the type of guy that Bronco Nation wants to have on its team, Dimitri Washington type of player. And, that's cool that he made this list. I get the pushback on Banya because Banya's been the more productive player since Dimitri Washington went down in Colorado Springs. Banya's had better statistics. Banya's had more splash plays, it feels like. And if Dimitri can get back, and that's a tough rotation, right? As you mentioned, that's a busy position. There's a lot of people who want to get those reps. So, iron sharpens iron, as Spencer Danielson would tell us, wouldn't he? And we'll have to see what Dimitri can do this year. But if he can get back to kind of that level, it looked like he was playing late 2019, early 2020, and that's going to be a major benefit for this defense in this program, quite frankly.
So you're right, John. He came in as a highly ranked recruit, came in and redshirted 2018 season. 2019, he had an impressive year in 2019, 33 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. So 4.5 sacks, and that was right there as a redshirt freshman. He comes in 4.5 sacks, 33 tackles. That's pretty impressive for a redshirt freshman. And as you said, all this offseason hype, we're going to hear from Spencer Danielson in a second, and then going into 2020. And remember, as you said, that was the Jack Sears game, but that was also the pandemic altered season that started a month late, and guys were getting injured and things like that. And certainly, sure enough, in game 2, I believe George Halani also got injured in that game. But you had Dimitri Washington go down, torn ACL. He's done for the rest of 2020. And then he comes back to start 2021. But as you know, Johnny, a lot of times it takes guys, and we talked to Riley Wimpy and some other guys about this, just because you're playing in the first game of the season doesn't mean you're 100% healthy. And even if you feel 100% healthy, usually you're a step slow. Usually you're not quite there, and it takes, 4, 5, 6 games to get into game shape, so to speak. And a lot of guys have talked about that. And Dimitri Washington admitted himself during spring practice this year, you saw a whole different player from game 1 to game 6. And so his overall stats were not that bad, John. He was 6th on the team, 41 tackles this past season, 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, a fumble recovery, and the interception that you mentioned with a 37-yard return. But the stats were definitely weighted towards the end of the season. You look at the first 7 games, he had 20 tackles in the first 7 games. In the final 5 games, he had 21 tackles. And also both of his sacks and the interception return came in the final 4 games of the season. So as he started to get healthier, started to feel better, the production went up late in the season. And I think you're counting on that to carry over. And yes, Isaiah Banya had 6 sacks last year. 6 sacks, more than Washington had as a freshman. Banya's a young guy, too, that should get better, and I think is going to be a big part of this. But I think Dimitri Washington, at his size, 6'3", 260, I think he's, finally going to be healthy again, and I'm banking on him getting back to that potential that we saw in him in 2019 and that Spencer Danielson saw in him, and that's why I'm putting him on this list. But you know how guys are coming off injuries, Johnny. Just because you're out there doesn't mean you're out there. First half of the season, he's 2, 3, 4 tackles a game, was kind of productive, but the last 4 games, 2 sacks, the interception, the return, started to play a lot better later in the season, and I'm banking on that carrying over.
Me too. And like you said, that 2019 season, that freshman year, redshirt freshman year, he gave everybody a strong indication like, okay, Boise State's got another guy here. And the edge position is not going to be a position of uncertainty moving forward. And it kind of was after Dimitri went down. But as you know, that's part of football. ACL, MCL, what's PCL. Those injuries happen, man. And guys got to come back, and can't wait to see what Dimitri does this year in a very busy group of a lot of capable players who want to get those game day reps. And it's a good problem if you're Spencer Danielson.
Yeah, it is. And I was looking back, and so I'm going to credit KTVB for this footage. I remember the interview we did. It was during the pandemic, so it was on Zoom. We were interviewing Spencer Danielson. It was the spring of 2020, right? It was just after he'd had his huge monster 2019 season. Curtis Weaver was about to get drafted into the draft. It was kind of time for Washington to take, replace Weaver, take that next step. Because don't forget, the 4.5 sacks, the 5.5 tackles for loss came while Curtis Weaver was on the roster. Weaver declares for the draft. And then we're talking to Spencer Danielson on Zoom, getting ready for the draft, and for Weaver. And then we start talking about Washington. And I remember the comments. You might have even been the one that asked one of the questions. And I found the footage on YouTube from KTVB. So this is credit to Jay Tuss, KTVB, for this 35-second clip. But just to remind folks, this is what Spencer Danielson said about Dimitri Washington, about 2 years ago.
Sky's the limit for that kid. I mean, sky is the absolute limit. You talk about the kids that do everything right. Dimitri Washington, 4.0 in the classroom, one of the strongest guys on our team, one of the most explosive guys on our team, knows the playbook inside and out. He does more on our defense and in different roles than probably anybody. Can't be more excited about what he can do for this defense. He is going to be a matchup issue for teams. Look for 38 to continue to be, as the years go, one of the best in the conference, if not on the West Coast going forward, 100%.
The quote-unquote, the next Curtis Weaver, so to speak, and that was kind of the hype going into 2020. But listening back to Spencer's comments and him being a matchup problem and one of the best on the West Coast and potentially being an NFL draft pick, I mean, do you 2 years later still think that potential is in Dimitri Washington?
Yeah, when you hear Spencer Danielson talk about him, even though that was 2 years ago, if I'm a Boise State fan, that fires me up again, right? The 4.0, like I said, first guy in, last guy out. That's the type of stuff that Spencer Danielson has said about Dimitri. That stuff hasn't changed. It's just been on the field productivity. And it's a busy room. A lot of good players want that spot. Now, this is the year where I think we will probably figure out if he's one of those NFL guys. And it's funny because, we talk on Idaho Sports Talk a lot about the NFL talent that is on this team right now. Now, last year, as far as going into the league, what is it? Just Khalil Shakir from that year who is in a camp right now, right? With Kaniho getting cut and the other guys not getting invited. I think it's just Shaq who's in a camp. That's not going to be the case, in my opinion, this time next year. I think there's more NFL talent ready to leave after this season or just on the roster. But when we talk about that, the JL Skinners, if you will, Scott Matlocks, Dimitri Washington has not been in that conversation, BJ. You've had these conversations too. And Dimitri's not one of those first 2 or 3 guys that kind of roll off your tongue for, oh yeah, that guy's going to get a shot on Sunday. He'll be in a camp, right? He might even get drafted. Dimitri has left that conversation. Now, can he get back in? Easily. And you know what? Now that I think about it, he probably will be, right? If he can have that season and you can add Dimitri Washington to that number of players that we think will at least get a shot to play in the NFL, maybe Demetri Washington will be one of them again. And that's obviously something that is good for everybody. It's good for Demetri and his family. It's good for Spencer Danielson and his defense. It's good for Coach Avalos and his football team. It's good for Jeremiah Dickey and this athletic program, right? If Demetri Washington is balling and he gets kind of back on track the way people thought that he was going to play. I mean, Spencer Danielson just said, like, dude, no one's in this league is going to have an answer for this guy, and maybe even on the whole West Coast. So let's see if he can get back there. You know he's going to put the work in. And now that he's full, almost 2 years removed from that knee injury, hopefully it's not in his head anymore, and he's ready to go, and that's going to add a lot of firepower to this defense. And it's a defense that needs it, man. You can't have enough pass rushers, BJ. So Spencer Danielson, like I said before, good problem for him to have. You obviously can tell how he feels about Demetri, and he's going to help him every step of the way. And it'll be exciting, I think, for Bronco Nation to see what kind of year Demetri Washington has. And that's probably why you, BJ, you have him on this list of not the best players, but the most important players. What's the importance that Demetri Washington gets back to, let's say, an all Mountain West caliber level of play? And if he does, again, everybody wins.
Yeah, and it's funny. Well, not funny. We were talking to him during spring. He was talking with the media. I think you and Prater were there that day, and he did talk about just having a new appreciation for football. You know how last year was kind of a struggle to get back to where he was, and he talked about the mental health aspect and Stephanie Donaldson and a lot of folks at Boise State kind of helping. And you think you go out there the first day, they clear you, and you think you're your old self again, and you're just not. You know, when you have injuries and stuff. So it sounds like he's in a better place mentally now too, and feels like he's past that. And he said it was the first time he's had a full spring, because he missed it with the injury and then the pandemic the year before. So he said it's the first time he's had a full spring, and he's just enjoying football. He realizes how hard this game is, how much you can't take it for granted. You never know when an injury is going to happen. So it sounds like he's just in a better place, with a mindset too, which I think is going to help him moving forward. And the funny part is last night was doing some research for this and working on the story that's already up on the site and kind of just refreshing my memory of the timeline with Demetri Washington. And when I was at the Idaho Press last year, I did a similar thing in the summer. Guess where I had Demetri Washington? Number 15. Yeah. I mean, it was totally random. And I looked at it and I saw I had Demetri Washington in the exact same place, number 15 on last year's team. That obviously, and he was 6th on the team in tackles. He had an okay year, but only 2 sacks. He
wasn't a star, right?
Nope. Banya was the star. Yep.
He was a role guy, a niche guy. And because he's a damn good football player. Boise State fans want to see Demetri Washington become a star. So
Chris Van Sickler saying George Tarlas playing edge, right? Yes. Oh yeah. There's numerous guys playing edge. George Tarlas, hard to put him on this list when he's barely hasn't played for other than a couple spring practices. We haven't seen him out there playing, but I do expect Tarlas, and he's a fun guy to talk to. Johnny, you guys had him in studio right on signing day. He's a local kid from Weber State and the Greek Freak, right? He's going to do some big things hopefully this year.
High school.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Richard chiming in. Love your guys' daily chats, going in depth about these guys. Appreciate that, Richard. It's been fun. Perry saying, I've heard that defense wins championships. Chad chiming in. If Demetri can stay fully healthy, he's going to have a great year. Yep, I kind of agree. Kurt Blake about to be blocked from this show for the Avalanche tweet there.
What's that series now, BJ?
It's 2-1, and you were correct. Yeah. Last night or a couple nights ago, I asked you before Game 3, and you said you liked Colorado, and Colorado goes in, takes out the Blues goalie. The backup has to come in, and the rest was history. Avalanche win.
Play?
No, it's a hockey play. I think he probably could have slowed up a little bit, but I'm not gonna. I was okay with that. It's hockey. It happens. It sucks. It changed the series, putting the backup goalie in there. But the one and only Karen Rains, my beautiful wife, will be in the crowd tonight for Game 4 at Enterprise Center in St. Louis. So I think the Blues go big on the Blues tonight. They're not going to lose with my wife splurging for tickets tonight to be in the crowd. So big Game 4 tonight for the Blues.
I'll check it out. It's supposed to be like 71, 72 degrees tonight. So, my show with Prater and JP will end at 6. I'll be home by 6:30. Gonna put some burgers on the grill.
There you go.
Check out my backyard a little bit. And,
you'll have a wager. We'll know. We know Johnny can't just watch a game. You'll have a wager. The +1 and 1.5 maybe tonight is. You know what? I say money line. Take the money line, man. +150, I believe. ride with the Blues, man. I think they're going to even the series up tonight. Who knows? But
I'll throw a couple bucks on it. Sure.
Rudy says ball game looks like his horse bets on the Preakness must have came in. Did you have a successful weekend?
I won $10 over the weekend. That was my total winning with my wins and losses. So
okay,
I'll take that as somewhat of a success. But no, I had a pretty good weekend. I went to Costco yesterday. Dude, I love Costco, even though we dropped like 3 bills. Had a great dinner Friday night. I had a lot of fun. Went to a graduation party on Saturday for college. I had a fun weekend, man. And it was I was tired though, so I was in bed early last night, ready for you.
You finally graduated?
Yeah, I graduated. Yes, I was on like the 7.5-year plan up in Moscow.
Oh, the party wasn't for you.
No, it was for one of my girlfriend's friends' sons. So yeah.
Well, congratulations to them. That's great.
It's the season, man. It's the season.
Well, again, number 15 is Dimitri Washington. You can check him out in all of the first 11 on the website, BroncoNationNews.com. Every day we have a story. And Thursday, Mike Prater will get his first chance on Thursday to have a live guest on here and be a part of an interview. Boise State has helped us out. Number 12 on our list. We'll not reveal him yet. We'll be on live, but he is a favorite, I think, of your show and a favorite of Mike Prater. So a player that had a chance to maybe go to the NFL and decided to come back this year. So there's your tease. And that'll be on Thursday. Mike Prater and I. Jay Tuss will be with us tomorrow as we get to number 14 and we keep this countdown rolling. I do want to switch gears, talk a little basketball, but quickly, do want to thank Transportation Compliance Service. They just signed up Warren G, the rapper, for his touring buses. So, hey, if you're looking for a new fresh start, a career change, it might sound crazy being a truck driver, but it's very lucrative right now with the pandemic. They're in dire need of truck drivers. 1,000 people a day are making the switch, and you can be next. All the permits and things you need to get out on the road and tow in that first load, Transportation Compliance Service can help you out. So check them out, transcompservice.com. JL Skinner is going to be out at the golf tournament on an NIL deal with Boise Dentistry Co. Looking forward to seeing JL out there. And you can get more information, BoiseDentistryCo.com, on the various locations around the Treasure Valley. Full family dentistry. Dr. Meinert does a great job. Those are my kids there on the screen smiling. And if you know my kids, it takes a lot to get them to smile. So Dr. Meinert and his staff do a great job. Our whole family has made the switch. And if you're looking for a new dentist, or if you moved and you're not near your old one anymore, or just looking for a spot where you can take kids and yourself, look no further, BoiseDentistryCo.com. United Commercial Insurance as well. We appreciate them. They can write business insurance in 44 states around the country. So most places only do policies in like 1 or 2 states, but they can help you out pretty much anywhere. Our guy Rudy is working with Brandon there to hopefully get something done for his business. UnitedCommercialInsurance.com. All the different business insurance. And you may own a business or work at a business where you think you have good business insurance. Check them out. They're local supporters of Bronco Nation News in the Treasure Valley here, and they can probably get you a better rate. Again, check them out, UnitedCommercialInsurance.com. Johnny, we had the news last week that Marcus Shaver Jr. is returning. Not huge, shocking news, but I think it does calm the nerves a little bit at Bronco Nation to officially have Marcus Shaver Jr. in the fold. And at this moment, you kind of look at the makeup of the roster, and the quote-unquote big three is now Marcus Shaver, Tyson Degenhart, and Chibuzo Agbo, the transfer from Texas Tech. You throw in Sada and Ganga. We're still trying to figure out what his role is going to be. Obviously, a top 100 recruit coming in, but very raw. You've got, most of your bench back, Max Rice, actually your whole bench back in terms of guys that produced. You lost Kason prior to a transfer, but he never played. So you bring back Max Rice. You bring back Najee Smith. You bring back Lucas Milner, Pavle Kuzmanovic, and then you add in the freshman, Burke Smith, who redshirted last year, 6'11" kid. You got R.J. Keene, who, has been described to me as a more athletic Justinian Jessup. Kobe Young,
man.
Yeah, I think you were watching that little practice, the open practice that day, and before the Memphis game, the day before, when they were doing a little 2-on-2 with the red shirts, and Kobe Young had a really impressive drive and looks pretty good. And so you have Young, you have Keene, you have Burke Smith, now done with their red shirts. I mentioned the whole bench being back, but they have one scholarship left. You would assume they're going to try to replace Milad Narmouche with a center. I guess technically Emmanuel Akot could come back, but that ship has pretty much sailed. But he has not picked the new school yet. What do you make of this roster, and how important is the last scholarship? I mean, do they need to go out and get an impact starter here, or where are you at on this roster and being able to compete for a Mountain West title?
It seems like on the surface, finding a capable center, 6'10" and above, someone who is used to playing in the block, a defender, a rebounder, a shot blocker that can give you kind of what Mladen gave this program. That does make a lot of sense. And it feels like there's those type of players in the portal. I'm sure they're doing their due diligence and they'll make the right decision there. I mean, Lucas Milner's going to be better this year than he was last year.
And I liked him at times, man. He was blocked in the Mountain West Championship game. He had 2 huge blocks on Nathan Mensah. I think he's actually more athletic than we saw from Mladen Armouche in terms of doing some things like that. But I'm not quite sure you're ready for him to play 30 minutes a game if you want to win the Mountain West.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, he's going to be better, but I don't know if that means he's an all-conference type of guy, which I think Mladen Armouche wasn't all-league, but he was kind of in that conversation. I mean, he was one of the upper echelon big men of the Mountain West last year. I'll give him that. And he probably would have been if he would have came back as well. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. I think for spurts, BJ, and hear me out here, I don't think this is the worst thing ever, especially if you're playing a team that likes to get up and down. I think you can go for spurts playing Degenhardt at the 5, okay, and running people out of the gym. And if you have your 5-man Degenhardt for spurts during the game, that's being able to shoot threes and take people off the dribble, I think you can get away with that. Obviously, though, that can't be the plan the whole time, right? I think Degenhardt in bits and pieces. Did he play the 5 ever last year, BJ? Here and
I'm
there
sure
during games
at some point. Yeah,
I think he did for
foul trouble or something. Yeah,
situation. So I think you can do that if you need to. If that's the case, and Milner's gonna be your starting 5, you might have to go in that direction. But maybe Milner's better served as we play him 7-8 minutes a half. It's like a 16 to 17 minute guy per game. Big, but it would make sense to look for a big man. Now, if Akot wants to come back, if he makes that call to Leon and says, Coach, man, I'm sorry for putting everybody through all this. I was listening to some people, and I just want to come back. Let's run this thing back. Does Leon say no to that? If that's your final Scully and you don't have a big, and you say, well, Emmanuel, E-Man, we need a center. We got one Scully left here. I don't know, man. We think we need a big man more than maybe we want to have you back or whatever the case is. But that would be tough for me to say no. If E-Man wants to run this thing back, you add him to that list of players you just talked about, and I think you got a shot to repeat as Mountain West champions. And it'll be a big Sir Mix-a-Lot, baby got back-sized butt, BJ. I don't know what you're going to do at center other than running with Milner and crossing your fingers and hope he's capable enough to get the job done.
Yeah, that's a big, interesting thing. Would you take E-Man back, but Lucas Milner had to be your starting center?
Exactly.
And then, your backup center is now Burke Smith, who's pretty much unproven and hasn't played much.
Or Tyson Degenhardt in spurts.
And Najee Smith, man, he plays bigger than his size, too, with the rebounds and some of the things that he does. I'm really intrigued by Najee Smith. I mean, Najee Smith and Milner both should be gone, Johnny. They had their 2 years that they should be gone, but with the COVID year, you get a guy like Najee Smith back for another year. Remember, he had some huge games last year, and I like the bench. I like Max Rice. I think he's going to be better next year than the first half of the year when he started 1 for 24 from 3 or whatever it was. I like Milner's development. I like Smith's development. I think Pavle Kuzmanovic can be better than he's shown. So I think that bench is nice, but if you having to start move 1 or 2 of those guys all of a sudden into the starting lineup, if Max Rice and Milner all of a sudden are starting, that changes things in a big way. So how they use that last scholarship, I think, is going to be huge. We'll find out here over the next few weeks. Coach Rice leaves later this week, I believe, for his Team USA duties. So you wonder if things can still happen while he's gone on the transfer portal front. We'll have to see. And I did see an update from Emmanuel Akot. He visited Mississippi State and had some interest from Texas Tech and some other schools. So if he has offers from some of those schools, he's probably gone. But if he wanted to come back, that would certainly be an interesting thing that we'd have to really discuss, and I think Leon Rice would have to have a serious discussion about as well, because I think Emmanuel Akot would be one of the best players on your team if he came back. But appreciate it, Johnny. We'll be listening 3 to 6 today, you and Prater and JP. A week from Friday, we'll see you out at the golf tournament. You guys are doing the show live out there. We're looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to wrapping up everything and getting everything put away, and then just having a cold one sitting out on the patio and with some folks and watching the live broadcast there. It's going to be a lot of fun. We appreciate you guys. And again, the KTIK app, they can download your podcast on the iTunes and all those ways, KTIK.com as well, or listen live 3 to 6, 95.3 FM, 1350 AM, man. So appreciate it. And bet the Blues tonight, man. They're going to even the series.
Thanks, bro. See you, dude.
Bronco Nation News Live. Appreciate you, folks. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you at JTUS, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bronco Nation News Live here at BroncoNationNews.com.